Okay, in this video, I'll be showing you how to use these three other main surface tools: planar surface, filled surface, and boundary surface. I will say this before we start. There is a bit of overlap between the three of these. What I mean by that, think back to when you were first learning how to do extrudes and revolves with 3D features. You might have noticed that depending on your sketches and the shapes that you did, you could make the same final product using an extrude or as you could have using a revolve, or maybe using a sweep or a loft. And so that's kind of what's going on here, is there is some overlap between these three boundary, filled, and planar surface tools. So what I want to show you is not the extent of that overlap, but just the most, at least in my experience, the most intuitive ways to use these three surface tools in order to give you hopefully some shapes that are desirable. Again, hopefully just the most intuitive, easy ways to do it. Okay. And so we'll start with a planar surface. So for a planar surface, you need a sketch, and it does have to be a closed loop. So I've got this sketch here. It is a closed loop. We're good. And all you need to do is select planar surface and select that sketch. And then that's it. There's not a lot of options over here. Hit the check mark. Okay, what that does is it just creates a surface in that sketch. Okay, if that sketch were to be like some sort of 3D sketch crossing multiple planes and not creating a flat surface, the planar surface tool would have an issue trying to create a surface there. So you might want to try and use a different tool. But if you're just creating a flat surface based off of the sketch, planar surface is where you need to be. Okay. Next thing is we're going to show you how to use filled surface. Okay. And for that, I've got this other sketch, which is just offset from that one. And we're going to start with a planar surface real quick. And so for that planar surface, I'm going to select that sketch and do that. Okay. And so we've got these two surfaces here, both planar surfaces. This is the best application I can find for filled surface, is when you have some sort of hole. Now this one's very obviously a hole. Depending on what you're doing, you might have a loft or something, and where the corners meet, there might be a hole. You can't quite figure out what's going on. And so that's where you would want to use filled surface. And so filled surface does what's called, you select what's called your patch boundary. And so that's what I like to think of. I think of it as a patch, or you're just filling that hole. Okay. And so all I do is I select that edge that I want to fill with that, and then I hit the check mark. There are different options here, but again, this is just the most intuitive one. That what you'll probably use it for is for filling holes like that. Okay. And then now on to boundary surface. Boundary surface works similarly to a loft, except it doesn't have the same controls and constraints that a loft does, like start and end constraints and guide curves like that. Basically, the way that I would use boundary surface is use it to kind of go between two sketches, or to loft between two sketches in a very simple manner, something that doesn't need to be controlled. And so for this one here, sorry, not sketches, edges. So I'm going to select this one, and you can see the boundary surface that it puts in there. Notice how you don't have guide curves. Again, you don't have start and end constraints. You do have another direction, which I'd say probably 99% of the time you're not going to worry about two directions with a boundary surface, just the one. This is a good way another way to fill in holes or gaps in your surfaces and in your parts using a boundary surface. Okay. So again, just to review real quick, planar surface generally will be used to create a surface on some sort of flat plane that is defined by a closed loop. A filled surface does not have to be on a flat plane. That's just what happened here for this particular example. What it does is it fills a hole. That's that simple. And then boundary surface, again, think of it as a loft, but without all the fancy things that a loft can do. if you just need to go from one edge to the other or one sketch to the other. Okay.